The papers had been sitting on the table long enough for the edges to curl. Ryan noticed them before he stepped fully into the room. He didn't touch them. Not yet. Just stood there, keys still in his hand, like he'd walked into the wrong house by mistake. Claire wasn't looking at him. She was at the sink, rinsing something that didn't need rinsing. The water ran too long. It filled the silence in a way that felt deliberate. He thought about saying her name. Didn't. Instead, he set the keys down a little too carefully, like noise might make something irreversible happen. The papers didn't move, but everything else already had. He didn't pick the papers up right away. That was the first thing that felt strange later. Not the papers themselves, not even what they meant. Just that pause, that small refusal to touch them, like his hands already knew something his mind hadn't caught up to yet. Ryan moved past the table. Slow. Measured. He set his bag down near the chair, not on it. The chair was already occupied, Claire's sweater draped over the back, one sleeve hanging lower than the other. It had been there this morning. Or maybe yesterday. He wasn't sure anymore. The water kept running. He glanced toward the sink again. Claire's shoulders were stiff. Not tense in a sharp way. Just held. Like she'd been standing like that for a while and forgot she could relax. "You left something out," he said. It came out quieter than he expected. Not accusing, not even curious. Just a sentence. She didn't turn. "I know." That was it. No explanation. No follow-up. Just those two words, placed between them like they were enough. He nodded, even though she couldn't see it. Then he reached for the papers. They were heavier than they looked. Not physically, just the way his fingers tightened around them without meaning to. He didn't flip through them, just saw the first page. His name. Hers. Words that were too formal for something that personal. He set them back down, exactly where they had been. "You could have told me," he said, still calm, still level, but something under it had shifted. A thin line, barely noticeable, but there. Claire turned off the water. For a second, the silence that followed felt louder than the running sink had been. She dried her hands slowly, careful, like she was buying time, but not in a rushed way, more like she needed each movement to land before the next one started. "I didn't know how," she said. Ryan let out a small breath through his nose. Not a laugh, not frustration, just something leaving? Yeah. He didn't ask anything else, didn't push. He walked to the fridge instead, opened it, looked inside without really seeing anything. A habit, something to do with his hands that wasn't standing still. "Are you hungry?" he asked. The question hung there for a second before either of them reacted to it. Claire blinked, like it took her a moment to understand what he'd said. "No," she answered. "I ate earlier." "Okay." He closed the fridge. Didn't take anything out. The room felt smaller than it should have, or maybe just quieter in a way that pressed in. Ryan leaned against the counter. Not fully, just enough to shift his weight. "How long?" he asked. Claire looked at the table, not at the papers, just the space near them. "A while." He nodded again. There was a part of him that wanted to ask what a while meant. Days, weeks, months, but he didn't. It didn't feel like it would change anything. He rubbed his thumb against his palm without noticing. "I didn't think you'd actually do it," he said. Claire's eyes flickered up, just briefly. "Neither did I." That one landed differently. Ryan looked at her then. Really looked. Her face wasn't tearful. Not angry either. Just tired, but not the kind of tired that sleep fixes. Something deeper. Something that had been sitting there for a long time. "You signed them?" he asked. "Yes." He swallowed. His throat felt dry, even though he hadn't said much. "And now?" She hesitated. "Not long. Just enough to be noticeable. Now I needed you to see them." He looked back at the table. "They've been here all day?" She nodded. "I wasn't sure when you'd be home." "I told you this morning." "I know." He exhaled again, this time a little heavier. "Right. There was something about the way she said things. Simple, direct. No padding, no softening. It made everything feel sharper, even when she wasn't trying to. Ryan pushed off the counter and walked to the table again. He pulled out the chair slowly, sat down across from the papers. Not too close, not too far. He rested his hands on his thighs, then lifted one and slid the papers a few inches toward him. Still didn't read them. "You've been thinking about this," he said. It wasn't a question. Claire leaned back against the counter now, mirroring where he'd been standing earlier. "Yes. And you didn't say anything." Her lips pressed together, just slightly. "I tried." Ryan's head tilted just a fraction. "When?" She didn't answer immediately. He noticed that. "I don't know," she said finally. "Different times. That's not the same as saying it." Her eyes dropped again. "I didn't think you were listening." That one didn't hit all at once. It settled slowly. Ryan sat back in the chair, the wood creaking under the shift. "I was here," he said. "I know." "Then how was I not listening?" Claire took a breath. Not deep, not dramatic, just enough to steady something. "Because being here isn't the same thing." The words stayed between them. Ryan looked at her for a long second. Not defensive, not even hurt. Not yet. Just trying to understand what she meant without asking her to explain it better. He leaned forward, elbows resting on the table. "What did you want me to hear?" he asked. Claire didn't answer right away. Her fingers traced the edge of the counter behind her, back and forth, like she was following a line only she could see. "I wanted you to notice," she said. Ryan blinked. "Notice what?" She looked up at him then, fully this time. "That I wasn't okay." He sat there still. "You didn't say that. I shouldn't have had to." The response came quick, not sharp, just immediate, like it had been waiting. Ryan's jaw tightened slightly. "How was I supposed to know if you didn't tell me?" Claire pushed off the counter and took a few steps closer, stopping on the other side of the table. "You used to know," she said. The sentence felt heavier than the others. Ryan looked down at his hands. They were still resting on his thighs, fingers curled slightly inward. "People change," he said, "or they stop paying attention." He let out a short breath. "That's not fair." "No," she said quietly. "It's not." For a moment, neither of them moved. The room held them there, not forcing anything, just waiting. Ryan reached for the papers again. This time he picked them up. Not to read, just to hold. His fingers pressed into the edges, leaving small bends that wouldn't flatten out easily. "You really went through with it," he said. Claire didn't respond. She didn't need to. He nodded once to himself more than to her. Okay. The word didn't mean acceptance. It just meant he had nothing else to say yet. He kept holding the papers longer than necessary. Not reading them, just feeling them there. The weight stayed the same, but his grip shifted. Tighter, then looser, like he couldn't settle on what they were supposed to mean in his hands. Claire pulled the chair out across from him, but didn't sit right away. She stood behind it for a second, fingers resting on the top edge, like she was deciding whether she belonged there. Then she sat, carefully, quiet. The chair legs made a soft sound against the floor that echoed more than it should have. Ryan finally looked down at the first page again. He read a line, then another. The words blurred a little, not because he couldn't see them, but because his focus kept slipping somewhere else. Dates, names, terms that didn't sound like them. He stopped halfway through the page. "That's how it gets written?" he asked. Claire followed his gaze. "Yes, it sounds like paperwork for something small." Her lips parted slightly, then closed again. "I guess it has to." He nodded. "Right?" He turned the page. This time, he didn't try to read every line. Just let his eyes move across the text, catching pieces. Enough to understand, not enough to absorb. There was a section about assets, another about timelines. He let out a quiet breath when he reached that part. "Timeline," he repeated under his breath. Claire shifted in her seat. "It's just standard." He tapped the paper lightly with his finger. Yeah, I know. But his tone said he didn't. Or maybe he just didn't want to. He flipped the pages back together and set them down, not as carefully as before. They landed slightly off-center this time. He noticed. Didn't fix it. How long have you felt like this? He asked. Claire's shoulders dropped a little. Not in relief. Just a release of something she'd been holding in place. I don't know exactly, she said. Try. She looked at him. Not defensive. Just searching for something that wouldn't turn into an argument the second it left her mouth. A while, she said again. But it got worse this past year. Ryan leaned back in his chair. A year. He repeated it slowly like it needed to be measured. And I didn't notice. Claire didn't say anything. He rubbed his face with one hand, dragging it down over his mouth. That's impressive, he said quietly. There was no pride in it. Claire shook her head. It's not like that. Then what is it like? Her eyes dropped to the table. You were busy. He let out a short, dry laugh. Busy. You were. I was working. I know, for us. The words came out a little sharper than the rest. Claire flinched. Not visibly at first, just a slight pause in her breathing. I didn't ask you to do it like that, she said. Brian leaned forward again, elbows on the table, hands clasped loosely. No, he said, you didn't. There was a small pause. But you didn't stop me either. Claire looked up at him. I didn't know I had to. He held her gaze for a second, then looked away. Yeah, he murmured. The room settled again. Not calm, just still. Ryan reached for the papers once more, but this time he didn't pick them up. Just rested his hand on top of them, fingers spread slightly. When did it start feeling like I wasn't here? He asked. Claire took a breath. Do you remember that night I stayed up waiting for you? She said. He frowned slightly. Which one? Her expression didn't change, but something behind it did. That's kind of the point. Ryan's jaw tightened. There were a lot of late nights. I know. You could have just gone to bed. I did, eventually. He exhaled. So that's it? I worked late, and now it's not about one night. Her voice didn't rise. It just cut through his sentence cleanly. Ryan stopped. He nodded once. Okay. She watched him carefully, like she was trying to read how much he was actually hearing. It was things like that, she continued. Small things, but they kept happening. He leaned back again, staring at the ceiling for a moment. Small things, he repeated. Yes. And they added up. Yes. He let his head fall forward again, looking at her. I thought I was doing what I was supposed to do. Claire's eyes softened slightly. I know you did. He held that for a second, then shook his head. That's not the same as it being enough. She didn't answer. Didn't need to. Ryan's hand slid off the papers and rested flat on the table. You could have said something clearer, he said. I tried. Not like this. Claire leaned forward slightly. Would you have listened? The question stayed there. Ryan opened his mouth. Closed it again. He looked down at the table, tracing a faint scratch in the wood with his finger. I don't know, he admitted. Claire sat back again. Neither of them spoke for a few seconds. Then Ryan picked up the papers again, this time flipping to the last page. He saw her signature. It looked like it always did. Familiar. Steady. That made it worse somehow. You already decided, he said. Claire's voice came softer now. I decided I couldn't keep pretending. He nodded slowly. And what am I supposed to do with that? She hesitated, then said, Be honest. Ryan let out a breath that felt heavier than the others. I am being honest. No, she said gently. You're being careful. He looked at her again. There was no accusation in her face, just certainty. That's how I've always been, he said. I know. And now it's a problem. It always was. We just didn't talk about it. He sat there, quiet. The words didn't hit all at once. They moved slowly, settling into places he hadn't looked at in a long time. He tapped the edge of the paper lightly against the table. A soft, repetitive sound. Then he stopped. "I didn't think we were this far gone," he said. Claire's eyes dropped again. "Neither did I," she whispered. The room felt heavier now. Not louder, not tense in the usual way. Just full. Ryan set the papers down one last time. This time he didn't move them again. He rested his hands on the table, palms down, like he needed something solid under them. "I don't want to sign those," he said. Claire didn't react right away. Then she nodded. "I didn't expect you to." He looked at her. "Then why put them there?" She met his eyes. "Because I needed you to see how serious it is." He held that, then nodded once. "Okay." The words sounded different this time. Not empty. Not final. Just heavier. They didn't move right away after that. The papers stayed between them. Not pushed forward. Not taken back. Just there. Like something neither of them wanted to claim ownership of. Ryan shifted in his chair, then stood. It wasn't sudden. Just necessary. He walked past Claire, close enough to feel the air change, but not close enough to touch her. Not even by accident. He stopped near the window. The street outside looked the same. A car passed. Someone walked by with a bag in their hand. Ordinary things, moving without interruption. He rested his hand against the frame. Cold. "You said I was being careful," he said, still facing outside. Claire didn't answer immediately. "Yes." He nodded to himself. "I've always been like that." "I know, and you stayed." The words weren't defensive, just laid out. Claire leaned forward slightly, forearms on the table. "I didn't think it would mean distance," she said. Ryan turned his head just enough to look at her over his shoulder. "What did you think it would mean?" She hesitated. "Stability." He looked back out the window. "That's what I thought I was giving you." "I know." He let out a slow breath. "But that's not what you felt." "No." He tapped his fingers lightly against the frame. Once. Then stopped. "I don't understand when it changed," he said. Claire watched him for a moment before answering. "It didn't change all at once." He nodded. "Then when did you first notice it?" She leaned back again, her gaze drifting somewhere past him. "I think it was gradual, but there was a point where I stopped expecting things from you." Ryan turned fully then. That got his attention. "What things?" She looked at him again. "Conversation, time, small things." He frowned slightly. "I was here every night." "Yes." "So what does that mean?" Claire exhaled. "It means you were physically here." Ryan's jaw tightened again, but he didn't interrupt this time. She continued. "You'd come home, eat, sit for a bit, then you'd be somewhere else in your head." He blinked. "I was tired." "I know. And I still showed up." Claire's expression didn't shift much. "You showed up to rest, not to connect." The word sat between them. Connect. Ryan looked away again, this time toward the floor. He took a few steps back toward the table, slower than before. "I didn't realize it felt like that," he said. "I didn't realize how much it mattered until it was already missing." He stopped at the edge of the table, hands resting on the back of the chair he'd been sitting in. "So what, I was just absent? Even when I was here?" Claire didn't answer immediately. Ryan noticed. "Say it," he said. She looked at him. "Yes." The word didn't come out harsh. That almost made it worse. Ryan pulled the chair out slightly, but didn't sit. He stayed standing, one hand still gripping the backrest. "That's not how it felt to me," he said. "I believe you, but that's what you're saying." "I'm saying that's how it felt to me." He looked at her for a long second, then finally sat down again. The chair scraped lightly this time. He didn't try to soften it. "So what did you do?" he asked, "when you started feeling that way?" Claire's fingers laced together on the table. "At first, I tried to bring things up." Ryan leaned forward slightly. "When?" "Small moments," she said. "Comments. Questions." He searched his memory. Nothing clear came up. I don't remember that. I know. There was no blame in it. Just fact. He let out a quiet breath. So then what? Claire's shoulders lifted just slightly, then dropped. I stopped. Ryan blinked. Stopped what? Trying. The word settled heavily. Ryan leaned back in his chair, his body going still. You just gave up? Claire shook her head. It didn't feel like giving up at the time. Then what did it feel like? She looked down at her hands. Adjusting. Ryan let out a short breath. That sounds the same. It's not. He didn't argue right away. He watched her instead. How is it different? He asked. Claire thought for a moment. Giving up feels loud, she said, like something breaks. Ryan stayed quiet. Adjusting is quieter, she continued. You just stop reaching for things that aren't there. The room held that for a second. Ryan looked down at the table, at the faint scratch he'd been tracing earlier. So you adjusted, he said slowly. Yes, and I didn't notice. Claire didn't respond. Ryan nodded once. That's on me. She shook her head. It's not just you. He looked up at her. Then who else? Claire met his gaze. I didn't say anything clearly enough. You said you tried. I did, but not in a way that forced us to deal with it. Ryan let that sit. Why not? She hesitated again, then said, I didn't want to fight. He leaned back slightly. So instead, you just let it happen. Her expression tightened, just for a second. It wasn't that simple. It kind of sounds like it was. Claire's eyes dropped again. It felt easier at the time. Ryan let out a breath. Easier than what? Than risking things getting worse. He stared at her. And this is better. She didn't answer. That was answer enough. Ryan rubbed his hands together slowly, then rested them on the table again. So all this time, we've just been, what? Claire looked at him carefully, living next to each other. The words landed quietly, but they stayed. Ryan sat there, unmoving. Then he nodded once. Yeah, he said under his breath. It didn't sound like agreement. It sounded like recognition. He glanced at the papers again, still where he'd left them, unmoved. You said you didn't know how to tell me, he said. Claire nodded. So this was how? She looked at the papers too. I needed something that made it real. Ryan studied her face. You couldn't just say it. I tried. Not like this. Claire didn't argue. Ryan leaned forward again, elbows on the table. His voice dropped slightly. Do you want this? He asked. The question didn't rush. It stayed steady. Claire didn't answer right away. Her fingers tightened together briefly, then relaxed. I don't want things to stay the way they are, she said. Ryan's eyes held on hers. That's not what I asked. She swallowed. He saw it. I don't know, she admitted. That was the first time her voice shifted. Not louder, just less certain. Ryan leaned back slowly, nodded once. Okay. This time the word didn't feel like the end of something. It felt like the beginning of something neither of them understood yet. Ryan didn't say anything after that. Not because he had nothing to say, just because anything that came up felt unfinished, like it would fall apart if he tried to force it into words too quickly. He leaned back in his chair, eyes drifting past Claire, settling somewhere near the wall behind her. I used to know what you were thinking, he said after a while. Claire didn't react right away. I remember that, she said. He nodded slightly. Not everything, he added, but enough. A pause. And now, she asked. He looked at her. Now I feel like I'm guessing. Claire held his gaze for a moment, then looked down again. That's how I felt for a long time. Ryan let that sit. Then he looked away again, rubbing the back of his neck. Why didn't you say that? He asked. I thought it was obvious. It wasn't. I know that now. He dropped his hand back to the table. You keep saying that, he said, like you figured it out after it was already too late. Claire's shoulders shifted slightly. Maybe I did. Ryan exhaled slowly. That doesn't help me now. I'm not trying to help you fix it, she said quietly. He frowned. Then what are you trying to do? Claire looked at him again. I'm trying to be honest. Ryan leaned forward slightly. So am I. There was a brief silence. Then Claire said, You're being honest about what you did, not about what you felt. Ryan blinked. That's not true. She didn't argue, just waited. He noticed. What do you want me to say? He asked. I don't want you to say anything specific. Then how do I do it wrong? Claire exhaled, her hands resting flat on the table now. You talk like everything had a reason, she said. Like if you explain it enough, it makes sense. Ryan's brow tightened. Doesn't it? No. The word came soft but steady, because it doesn't change how it felt. He leaned back again, crossing his arms loosely. So what? I just say I feel bad? That's not what I'm asking. Then what are you asking? Claire hesitated. Then she said, I want to know if you ever noticed the distance. Ryan went still. That question didn't land the same way the others had. It didn't sit on the surface. It went deeper. He looked down at the table again, his fingers pressing lightly into the wood. There was a long pause. I think I noticed something, he said finally. Claire didn't move. But I didn't stay with it long enough to understand it. Her eyes stayed on him. What do you mean? Ryan swallowed. There were moments, he said slowly, where things felt off. Claire's expression didn't change, but her attention sharpened. What kind of moments? He shook his head slightly, like he was trying to pull something into focus. Like when I'd say something and you'd just nod, he said. Or when we'd sit in the same room and not talk for a long time. Claire looked down briefly. That happened a lot. I know. He paused. I just thought it was normal. She looked back up at him. Normal? Yeah. For us? For people, I guess. Claire's lips pressed together. That's not what I wanted us to be. Ryan let out a quiet breath. I didn't think you didn't want it. I did, she said. I just didn't know how to change it. He nodded slowly. So you let it keep going? Yes. And I let it keep going too. She didn't respond. He didn't expect her to. Ryan uncrossed his arms and leaned forward again, resting his hands on the table. I should have asked more questions, he said. Claire watched him carefully. I should have paid attention when things felt off instead of just assuming they'd fix themselves. She didn't interrupt. He looked at her again. I think I thought if nothing was wrong enough to cause a fight, then it was fine. Claire's eyes softened slightly. That's what I thought too, she said. Ryan let out a breath that almost sounded like a quiet laugh. That's not a great system. No. Another pause. This one felt different. Not as heavy, still serious, but less stuck. Ryan glanced at the papers again, then back at Claire. You said you don't know if you want this, he said. She nodded. Yeah. He leaned back slightly, studying her face. That's honest, he said. I'm trying. He nodded once. Me too. Claire's fingers shifted slightly on the table. What do you want? She asked. Ryan didn't answer immediately. He looked at the papers again, then at his hands, then back at her. I don't want this to be how it ends, he said. The words came out steady. No hesitation. Claire held his gaze. That doesn't answer the question. He nodded. I know. A pause. I still... He stopped, cleared his throat slightly. Still care about you, he said. Claire's expression flickered, just for a second. That's not the same as before, she said. I know. Then what is it? Ryan thought for a moment. Something that didn't go away, he said. She watched him closely. Even now. Even here. That hadn't changed. And is that enough? She asked. Ryan didn't respond right away. He leaned back, eyes drifting again, like he was trying to find something that wasn't sitting on the surface. I don't know, he admitted. Claire nodded slightly. Okay. The word didn't close anything, it just acknowledged where they were. Ryan looked back at her. What about you? He asked. She hesitated, then said, I don't think I stopped caring either. He held that. But it doesn't feel the same, she added. No. Another pause. Ryan let out a slow breath. So we're not nothing, he said. Claire shook her head. No, but we're not what we were. No. He nodded. Okay. There it was again. That word, still not final, still not empty, just holding space. Ryan reached for the papers one more time. Not to read. Just to move them slightly to the side, clearing a small part of the table. It wasn't a big gesture, barely noticeable, but it changed something. Just enough. The papers stayed off to the side, not out of sight, just no longer in the center of things. Ryan noticed it after a while. The space in front of him felt different, not clearer, just less crowded. He rested his hands there, palms flat again, like he needed to feel the surface without anything between. Claire followed the movement with her eyes, then looked back at him. Neither of them mentioned it. For a few minutes, they didn't say anything at all. It wasn't the same silence as before. This one didn't feel like something being avoided, more like something settling. Ryan shifted in his chair slightly. There was a time, he said, not looking at her right away, when this felt easy. Claire's expression softened in a way that didn't reach her eyes completely. I remember that. He nodded, before everything got quiet. She let out a small breath. It wasn't always quiet. No, he said, it just ended up that way. Claire leaned back in her chair, her arms resting loosely at her sides. I think we stopped noticing when it started happening. Ryan looked at her then, or we noticed and didn't think it mattered yet. She didn't argue with that. A car passed outside again. The faint sound of it slipped into the room, then disappeared. Ryan's gaze drifted toward the window for a second, then back to her. Do you remember the first apartment? He asked. Claire's lips pressed together briefly. Yeah, the one with the broken heater. A faint, almost smile touched her face, and that one window that wouldn't close all the way. He nodded. It used to whistle at night. It drove you insane. He let out a quiet breath that could have been a laugh. I fixed it, eventually. With tape. It worked. For a while. Ryan looked down at the table. For a while, he repeated. The words sat there longer than they should have. Claire noticed. You stayed up that night, she said. He looked up. Which night? When it got really cold, she said. You didn't want me to wake up freezing. Ryan blinked. He hadn't thought about that in a long time. I don't remember that. I do. He leaned back slightly, his brow furrowing. I was probably just awake. No, she said quietly. You were paying attention. That landed differently. Ryan looked at her. There was no accusation in her voice, just a contrast. He rubbed his thumb against his palm again. I guess I used to be better at that, he said. Claire shook her head slightly. You weren't better, she said. You were just there. He held that. What does that mean? She hesitated, searching for the right way to say it. You weren't dividing your attention, she said. You weren't thinking about 10 other things at the same time. Ryan looked away. That happens. I know. It's not intentional. I know that too. He exhaled slowly, but it still changed things. Yes? The word stayed steady. Ryan leaned forward again, elbows on the table, hands clasped loosely. I didn't realize how much I was splitting myself, he said. Claire watched him. You got used to it. Yeah. He nodded once. And I thought that was normal. She tilted her head slightly. Maybe it is for some people. He let out a quiet breath. I didn't want that for us. Claire's eyes softened again just a little. I don't think you noticed it becoming that. Ryan shook his head. No. He looked at the papers briefly, then back at her. Do you remember when we stopped talking at night? He asked. Claire's expression shifted slightly. I don't think it stopped, she said. It did. She studied his face. When? Ryan thought for a moment. Not all at once, he said. Just less. Claire nodded slowly. Yeah. We used to talk about nothing, he said. Just random things. Stuff that didn't matter. I like that, she said quietly. Me too. A pause. Then it became updates, Ryan added. Schedules. Plans. Claire looked down at the table again. That's when it started feeling different. He nodded. I thought that's just what happens. She shook her head slightly. It doesn't have to. Ryan sat with that. His fingers tapped lightly against each other, then stopped. I think I thought as long as nothing was wrong, we were okay, he said. Claire didn't respond right away. That's what I thought too, she said finally. He looked at her. Then how did we both miss it? Claire exhaled slowly. Because nothing was wrong enough. Ryan frowned slightly. That doesn't make sense. It does, she said. There wasn't a moment where everything broke. It just shifted. He leaned back again, eyes narrowing slightly as he tried to follow it. So we adjusted to the shift. Yes. And then that became normal. Yes. He let out a breath. That's frustrating. Claire gave a small nod. It is. Another pause. Ryan's gaze drifted again, this time toward the corner of the room. There were times I almost said something, he admitted. Claire looked up. When? He shrugged slightly. Random moments, when it felt too quiet, or when you'd leave the room and I'd notice it more after you were gone. She held his gaze. Why didn't you say anything? He didn't answer immediately. Then, I thought I was overthinking it. Claire's expression tightened just a little. I wish you hadn't. Ryan nodded slowly. Yeah. He rubbed his hands together again. That seems to be a pattern. She didn't disagree. Ryan leaned forward slightly. I didn't think silence could mean something was wrong, he said. Claire's voice came softer. It depends on the kind of silence. He looked at her. This one was different. Yes. He nodded. I see that now. The words didn't fix anything, but they didn't feel empty either. Claire shifted in her seat, her posture relaxing just a little. Do you remember the last time things felt normal? She asked. Ryan thought about it. Really thought. His brow furrowed slightly, his eyes unfocused for a moment. Then he shook his head. No, he said. Claire looked down. Me neither. The absence of that answer stayed with them. Not loud, just there. Ryan glanced at the papers again, then away. I don't want this to just be a list of what went wrong, he said. Claire looked at him. It's not. Then what is it? She took a moment, then said, It's us finally noticing it. Ryan held that, then nodded. Yeah. This time the word felt closer to something real. Not resolution, but awareness. And that was new. Ryan didn't realize how tired he was until he stopped trying to hold everything in place. It came quietly. Not like exhaustion, more like something loosening. He leaned back in his chair and let his arms rest at his sides. For a moment, he just sat there, not thinking about what to say next. Claire watched him but didn't interrupt. That felt different too. You said you stopped expecting things, he said after a while. Claire nodded slightly. Yeah. He tilted his head, studying her. What did that look like? She took a breath. Smaller reactions, she said. Not asking follow-up questions. Letting conversations end early. Ryan frowned. I thought you just didn't feel like talking. I didn't, she said, but not for the reason you thought. He leaned forward again, resting his forearms on the table. What was the reason? Claire looked at him carefully. It felt like it didn't matter if I did. Ryan's eyes narrowed slightly. That's not true. She didn't react. He noticed. I mean, it is true that it felt that way, he corrected himself. But it wasn't real. Claire's voice stayed calm. It was real to me. He nodded once. Right. There it was again. That gap. Not in what they said, but in how it landed. Ryan pressed his lips together briefly, then let them relax. I wish I had seen that, he said. Claire didn't respond immediately. Then I wish I had made you see it. He shook his head slightly. You shouldn't have had to make me see it. Maybe not, she said. But I still could have tried harder. Ryan leaned back again. That sounds like we're both waiting for the other person to have done something different. Claire's expression softened just a little. Yeah, he let out a quiet breath. That's not helpful. No. They sat in that for a moment. Then Ryan said, Do you remember when we used to argue more? Claire blinked, caught slightly off guard. Yeah. He gave a small nod. I think that was better. She looked at him, confused. Better? At least it meant we were engaged, he said. We were paying attention. Claire thought about that. I used to hate it, she admitted. Me too. A pause. But now it feels like we just avoided everything. Claire's gaze drifted to the table again. I stopped bringing things up because I didn't want it to turn into an argument. Ryan tilted his head slightly, and I stopped noticing things because nothing was being brought up. She looked at him again. Yeah. He let out a breath. That's not a great combination. No, she said quietly. Another pause. Ryan's eyes flickered toward the papers again, then away. You didn't wake me up, he said suddenly. Claire frowned slightly. What? The night you said I stayed up, he clarified. You didn't wake me up when it got cold again. Her expression shifted. I didn't want to bother you. Ryan's jaw tightened just slightly. That's not bothering me. I know that now. He shook his head. No, you knew that then too. Claire hesitated, then said, I wasn't sure anymore. That landed. Ryan went still for a second. You weren't sure if I'd care? Claire didn't answer right away. Then she nodded. Ryan looked down at the table, his fingers curling slightly against the surface. He stopped. Tried again. That's not how I see myself. Claire's voice stayed soft. I know. He looked up at her. Then how did it get there? She exhaled slowly. I think when someone stops reacting, it starts to feel like they don't care. Ryan sat with that. I didn't stop caring, he said. I know, but I stopped showing it. Claire nodded. Yes. He leaned back again, staring at the ceiling briefly. That's a problem. Yes. He let out a quiet breath. I thought doing things was enough. Claire tilted her head slightly. What kind of things? Working, he said. Keeping things stable, making sure everything was handled. She watched him carefully. I saw those things, she said. But I didn't feel them. Ryan's eyes dropped. That distinction stayed with him. I didn't realize there was a difference, he admitted. Claire's voice softened further. There is. He nodded slowly. Yeah. Another pause. Ryan shifted in his chair again, sitting forward this time. I think I got used to being useful, he said. Claire looked at him, something in her expression changing. What do you mean? He hesitated. Like the words weren't as easy to say this time. I mean, I knew how to fix things, he said. Handle things. Solve problems. Claire stayed quiet. And I thought that was what I was supposed to be, he continued. Her gaze didn't leave him, and when nothing was breaking, I didn't know what else to do. Claire's fingers tightened slightly on the table. You were supposed to be more than that. Ryan gave a small, almost hollow smile. I didn't know how. The room went still again, but not in the same way as before. This silence felt closer. Claire leaned forward slightly. You didn't have to know, she said. You just had to try. Ryan looked at her. I thought I was trying. I know. But not in the way you needed. Claire nodded. Yes. He let out a breath. That's frustrating. It is. Another pause. Ryan's eyes flickered to the papers again. Still there. Still waiting. But somehow less urgent than before. I don't like that this is the first time we're actually saying all of this, he said. Claire's expression tightened just slightly. Me neither. He shook his head. It shouldn't have taken this. No. They both looked at the papers for a moment. Then away. Ryan rested his hands flat on the table again. I still don't want to sign those, he said. Claire nodded. I know. But I also don't want to just pretend everything's fine. I don't either. He looked at her. So what do we do? Claire didn't answer right away. She looked at him for a long moment, then said, We stop pretending. Ryan held her gaze. That's it? For now. He nodded slowly. For now. The words didn't fix anything, but they didn't feel empty, and for the first time that seemed to matter more. Yes. Chapter 4, Part 1. The light in the room had shifted without either of them noticing. It came in lower now, softer. The edges of things looked less defined. Shadows stretched longer across the floor, cutting through the table legs, brushing against their feet. Ryan noticed it when he glanced toward the window again. It's getting late, he said. Claire followed his gaze. Yeah. Neither of them moved to turn the lights on. The dimness stayed. It felt appropriate. Ryan leaned back in his chair, letting his head rest for a second before bringing it forward again. I keep thinking about something you said, he murmured. Claire looked at him. What? That you stopped expecting things. She didn't respond right away. Then, yeah. He nodded slowly. I didn't realize that was happening. I know. He rubbed his hands together again, slower this time. I think I would have done something if I had known, he said. Claire's expression didn't change much. But you didn't, she said. It wasn't harsh. Just steady. Ryan looked down at the table. I keep coming back to that, he admitted. The fact that I didn't see it. Claire watched him. You're seeing it now. He gave a small, tight nod. Now doesn't feel like it counts. She leaned back slightly. It counts if you do something with it. Ryan looked up at her. Like what? Claire hesitated. I don't know yet. He exhaled. That's not very helpful. No, she said. It's just honest. He sat with that, then leaned forward again, resting his arms on the table. I don't want to go back to how things were, he said. Claire's eyes stayed on him. Neither do I. He nodded. But I also don't know how to move forward without fixing everything all at once. She tilted her head slightly. You don't have to fix everything. It feels like I do. Why? Ryan paused, then said, Because if I don't, what stops this from happening again? Claire didn't answer immediately. He noticed. Say it, he said. She looked at him. There's no guarantee it won't. Ryan's jaw tightened slightly. That's not a great answer. It's not supposed to be. He leaned back again, exhaling through his nose. So we just try and hope it works? Claire's voice stayed calm. We try and pay attention. Ryan shook his head slightly. That sounds vague. It's not, she said. It just doesn't feel concrete. He looked at her. I'm used to things being concrete. I know. He let out a breath. That's part of the problem, isn't it? Claire didn't respond. She didn't need to. Ryan leaned forward again, his fingers tapping lightly against the table before going still. I keep thinking about what you said earlier, he said, about me being useful. Claire's expression shifted slightly. Yeah. He looked at his hands. I think I made that my whole role. She watched him carefully. And I didn't realize I was doing it, he added. Claire nodded. I think I let you. Ryan looked up. What do you mean? She hesitated. then said it was easier. He frowned. Easier how? Claire took a breath. If you were handling everything, I didn't have to think about what was missing. Ryan sat back slightly. So you ignored it too? She nodded. Yes. He let that settle. That doesn't make me feel better, he said. I'm not trying to make you feel better. He gave a small, almost humorless smile. Yeah, I figured. A pause. But it matters, she added. That it wasn't just you. Ryan looked at her. I know, he paused. It just doesn't change what I didn't do. Claire's gaze softened. No, it doesn't. The room stayed quiet for a moment. Ryan glanced at the papers again, then away. You said you needed something that made it real, he said. Claire nodded. Yeah. He leaned forward slightly. It's real. I know. He held her gaze. More than you probably expected. She looked at him for a long second, then nodded. Yes. A pause. Ryan's fingers curled slightly against the table. I keep thinking about signing them, he said. Claire didn't react immediately. Then, quietly, okay. He shook his head. Not because I want to, he added. Just because it feels like maybe that's what this leads to. Claire watched him. Do you want it to lead there? He didn't answer right away. Then, no. The word came out steady, clear. Claire held his gaze. Then don't sign them, she said. Ryan let out a breath. It's not that simple. It doesn't have to be simple. He leaned back again, running a hand through his hair. I don't want to stay in something that's already gone, he said. Claire's voice stayed soft. It's not gone. He looked at her. It feels like it is. It feels different, she said. That's not the same thing. Ryan studied her face. You really believe that? She hesitated, then nodded. Yes. He let that sit. Then looked down again. I don't know if I trust that yet, he admitted. Claire didn't argue. That's fair. Another pause. Ryan's gaze drifted around the room. The same room they'd been in for years. Nothing had changed, but everything had. I don't want to be someone you stop expecting things from, he said. Claire's expression softened again. Then don't be. He looked at her. That's not something I can just decide once. I know. Then what is it? Claire took a moment. It's something you keep choosing, she said. Ryan sat with that. It wasn't an easy answer, but it didn't feel wrong either. He nodded slowly. Okay. There it was again. That word. Still not final. Still not empty. Just holding something in place long enough for it to be understood. The light in the room had shifted without either of them noticing. It came in lower now, softer. The edges of things looked less defined. Shadows stretched longer across the floor, cutting through the table legs, brushing against their feet. Ryan noticed it when he glanced toward the window again. It's getting late, he said. Claire followed his gaze. Yeah. Neither of them moved to turn the lights on. The dimness stayed. It felt appropriate. Ryan leaned back in his chair, letting his head rest for a second before bringing it forward again. I keep thinking about something you said, he murmured. Claire looked at him. What? That you stopped expecting things. She didn't respond right away. Then yeah. He nodded slowly. I didn't realize that was happening. I know. He rubbed his hands together again, slower this time. I think I would have done something if I had known, he said. Claire's expression didn't change much. But you didn't, she said. It wasn't harsh. Just steady. Ryan looked down at the table. I keep coming back to that, he admitted. The fact that I didn't see it. Claire watched him. You're seeing it now. He gave a small, tight nod. Now doesn't feel like it counts. She leaned back slightly. It counts if you do something with it. Ryan looked up at her. Like what? Claire hesitated. I don't know yet. He exhaled. That's not very helpful. No, she said. It's just honest. He sat with that. then leaned forward again, resting his arms on the table. I don't want to go back to how things were, he said. Claire's eyes stayed on him. Neither do I. He nodded. But I also don't know how to move forward without fixing everything all at once. She tilted her head slightly. You don't have to fix everything. It feels like I do. Why? Ryan paused, then said, because if I don't, what stops this from happening again? Claire didn't answer immediately. He noticed. Say it, he said. She looked at him. There's no guarantee it won't. Ryan's jaw tightened slightly. That's not a great answer. It's not supposed to be. He leaned back again, exhaling through his nose. So we just try and hope it works? Claire's voice stayed calm. We try and pay attention. Ryan shook his head slightly. That sounds vague. It's not, she said. It just doesn't feel concrete. He looked at her. I'm used to things being concrete. I know. He let out a breath. That's part of the problem, isn't it? Claire didn't respond. She didn't need to. Ryan leaned forward again, his fingers tapping lightly against the table before going still. I keep thinking about what you said earlier, he said, about me being useful. Claire's expression shifted slightly. Yeah. He looked at his hands. I think I made that my whole role. She watched him carefully. And I didn't realize I was doing it, he added. Claire nodded. I think I let you. Ryan looked up. What do you mean? She hesitated, then said, it was easier. He frowned. Easier how? Claire took a breath. If you were handling everything, I didn't have to think about what was missing. Ryan sat back slightly. So you ignored it too? She nodded. Yes. He let that settle. That doesn't make me feel better, he said. I'm not trying to make you feel better. He gave a small, almost humorless smile. Yeah, I figured. A pause. But it matters, she added, that it wasn't just you. Ryan looked at her. I know. He paused. It just doesn't change what I didn't do. Claire's gaze softened. No, it doesn't. The room stayed quiet for a moment. Ryan glanced at the papers again, then away. You said you needed something that made it real, he said. Claire nodded. Yeah. He leaned forward slightly. It's real. I know. He held her gaze. More than you probably expected. She looked at him for a long second, then nodded. Yes. A pause. Ryan's fingers curled slightly against the table. I keep thinking about signing them, he said. Claire didn't react immediately. Then, quietly, okay. He shook his head. Not because I want to, he added. Just because it feels like maybe that's what this leads to. Claire watched him. Do you want it to lead there? He didn't answer right away. Then, no. The word came out steady, clear. Claire held his gaze. Then don't sign them, she said. Ryan let out a breath. It's not that simple. It doesn't have to be simple. He leaned back again, running a hand through his hair. I don't want to stay in something that's already gone, he said. Claire's voice stayed soft. It's not gone. He looked at her. It feels like it is. It feels different, she said. That's not the same thing. Ryan studied her face. You really believe that? She hesitated, then nodded. Yes. He let that sit, then looked down again. I don't know if I trust that yet, he admitted. Claire didn't argue. That's fair. Another pause. Ryan's gaze drifted around the room, the same room they'd been in for years. Nothing had changed, but everything had. I don't want to be someone you stop expecting things from, he said. Claire's expression softened again. Then don't be. He looked at her. That's not something I can just decide once. I know. Then what is it? Claire took a moment. It's something you keep choosing, she said. Ryan sat with that. It wasn't an easy answer, but it didn't feel wrong either. He nodded slowly. Okay. There it was again. That word. Still not final. Still not empty. Just holding something in place long enough for it to be understood. The room had gone dim enough that the outlines started to blur. Ryan noticed it first in Claire's face. The details softened. Not gone. Just harder to read. It made everything she said feel quieter, even when it wasn't. He reached toward the wall out of habit, then stopped before his hand touched the switch. "Leave it," Claire said. He glanced at her, then lowered his hand. "Okay." The dim light stayed. Ryan shifted in his chair, leaning forward again. His elbows pressed into the table harder this time, like he needed something solid to push against. "I don't think I've ever asked you this directly," he said. Claire waited. "Did you feel alone?" The question didn't come out quickly. It took its time. Claire's fingers stilled against the table. "Yes," she said. No hesitation. Ryan looked down. There it was. Simple. Clear. No room to move around it. He nodded once, slowly. "Okay." The word sounded heavier now. Not uncertain, not open. Just accepted. He swallowed, his throat tightening slightly. "Even when I was right here," he added. Claire didn't soften it. "Yes." Ryan's jaw shifted. He pressed his lips together for a second, then let them part again. "That's..." He stopped. Tried again. "That's hard to hear." "I know." He rubbed his face with one hand, dragging it down slowly. "I don't like that I made you feel that way." Claire watched him. "I don't think you meant to. That doesn't change it." "No," she said quietly. "It doesn't." Ryan dropped his hand back to the table. For a moment, he just sat there, staring at the surface like he could find something there if he looked long enough. "You could have left earlier," he said. Claire's brow tightened slightly. "I thought about it." He looked up. "When?" She hesitated. "A few months ago." Ryan leaned back, the chair creaking under him. "And you stayed?" "Yes." "Why?" Claire looked at him. "I wasn't sure if it was something we could fix." Ryan nodded slowly. "And now?" She didn't answer right away. "I still don't know," she said. He let out a quiet breath. "That's honest." "Yes." He looked at her for a long second. "Were you waiting for me to notice?" he asked. Claire's expression shifted slightly. "I think I was," she admitted. Ryan's shoulders dropped a little. "I didn't." "I know." He looked down again. "That feels worse somehow." She didn't respond. Ryan tapped his fingers lightly against the table again, a soft, uneven rhythm. Then he stopped. "I keep thinking about something," he said. Claire waited. "If I had noticed earlier, would this be different?" She took a breath. "I don't know." He nodded. "Yeah?" A pause. "I want to say yes," she added. "But I can't be sure." Ryan looked at her. "That makes sense?" He leaned forward again, resting his forearms on the table. "I don't want to lose this," he said. Claire's eyes stayed on him. "What is this?" she asked. Ryan hesitated, then said, "Us." She studied his face. "We're already different," she said. "I know." "Then what are you trying to hold on to?" Ryan looked down, his fingers pressing into the table again. "Something that still matters," he said. Claire's expression softened, just slightly. "It does matter," she said. He looked up. "Then why does it feel like we're already halfway out?" Claire didn't answer immediately. "Because there wasn't a simple answer. It feels like that because we've been drifting for a long time," she said finally. Ryan nodded. "Yeah. And now we're just noticing it all at once." He let out a slow breath. "That's a lot." "Yes." Another pause. Ryan glanced at the papers again. Still there. Still waiting. But now they felt less certain. Not because they meant less, just because something else had entered the space. Something harder to define. "I don't want to be someone you feel alone with," he said. Claire's voice came softer. "Then don't be." He gave a small shake of his head. "That's not something I can promise in one conversation." I'm not asking for a promise. Then what are you asking for? Claire leaned forward slightly. Effort you can feel. Ryan held her gaze. That landed. Different from before. Not abstract. Not vague. Clear. He nodded once. Okay. There it was again. But this time it didn't feel like a placeholder. It felt like something he was actually considering. Not fully formed. Not complete. But real. Claire watched him for a moment, then leaned back again. I don't need you to fix everything, she said. I just need to know you see it. Ryan nodded slowly. I do. A pause. And I need to see it in how you act, she added. He looked at her. That's fair. Another pause, the kind that didn't rush to be filled. Ryan exhaled slowly, his shoulders loosening just a little. I don't know what this looks like yet, he said. Claire nodded. Me neither. He leaned back in his chair again, letting his hands rest loosely in his lap. But I don't want to walk away without trying, he added. Claire's gaze stayed steady. I don't either. The words didn't come with relief. They didn't solve anything, but they shifted something. Just enough. Ryan looked at the papers one last time, then reached out and turned them face down. Not dramatically. Not as a statement. Just quietly. Claire noticed. She didn't say anything. But her posture changed slightly. A small release. Ryan saw it, didn't point it out. The room stayed dim. The silence stayed. But it didn't feel as heavy. Not gone, just different. And for the first time, that difference didn't feel like distance. They didn't rush to fill the silence after that. Ryan stayed where he was, his hands still resting near the papers, even though he'd already turned them over. Claire sat across from him, her posture softer now, not guarded in the same way. The room held them in that quiet. Not empty, just waiting. Ryan glanced at her again, then away. I keep thinking I should say something that fixes this, he said. Claire shook her head slightly. You don't have to. I know, he replied. It just feels like I should. She watched him for a moment. That's kind of what you do. He gave a small nod. Yeah. A pause. But this isn't something I can fix like that. No, she said. It's not. He leaned back, letting his head tilt slightly as he looked toward the ceiling again. I don't like not knowing what to do, he admitted. Claire's voice stayed calm. You don't have to know yet. He let out a breath. That's uncomfortable. I know. Ryan brought his head back down, looking at her again. But I think I understand something now, he said. She didn't interrupt. I've been waiting for clear problems, he continued. Things I could point at and solve. Claire nodded slightly, and this wasn't like that. No. He looked down at his hands. It was quieter. Yes. He rubbed his thumb against his palm again. I missed it because of that. Claire didn't respond. She didn't need to. Ryan let out a slow breath. I don't want to miss things like that again. Claire's gaze stayed steady. Then don't. He looked at her. That's not something I can just decide once. I know. Then what is it? She hesitated, then said, It's something you keep noticing. Ryan nodded slowly. Okay. There it was again. But now it felt less like a placeholder, more like something he was actually holding on to. Claire shifted slightly in her seat. I need to say something too, she said. Ryan's attention sharpened. Okay. She took a breath. I didn't just feel alone because of what you weren't doing. He stayed still. I also pulled away, she added. Ryan watched her carefully. I stopped letting you in, she said. He frowned slightly. What do you mean? Claire looked down at her hands. There were things I didn't say, she explained. Things I was feeling that I kept to myself. Ryan leaned forward slightly. Why? She hesitated. Because I didn't think it would change anything. He sat back. So you decided that for both of us. Her expression tightened just a little. Yes, Ryan exhaled. That's not fair. I know. He looked at her. But I understand why you did it. She met his gaze. I didn't want to keep trying if nothing was going to shift. Ryan nodded slowly. Yeah. A pause. I think I would have tried, he said. Claire's voice stayed soft. I know. But you didn't give me the chance. She looked down again. No. Ryan let that sit. Not as blame, just something that existed between them now. I wish you had, he added. I do too. The words didn't come out defensive. They just landed. Ryan leaned back again, his hands resting loosely in his lap. I don't want this to be something we both regret, he said. Claire looked at him. It already is, she replied quietly. He nodded. Yeah, a pause. But that doesn't mean we stop here. She studied his face. You really think that? He hesitated, then nodded. I think if we stop here, we don't actually understand what happened. Claire held his gaze. And you need that? Yes. She considered that for a moment, then said, I think I do too. Ryan let out a breath. Okay. Again. But this time, it didn't feel like uncertainty. It felt like agreement. Not on what the outcome would be. Just on continuing. Claire shifted slightly, her hands resting flat on the table again. I don't want to go back to how things were, she said. Ryan nodded. Me neither. But I also don't want to pretend this didn't happen. We can't. No. Another pause. Ryan glanced at the papers again. Still face down. Still there. But not the center anymore. I think, if we try, it has to be different, he said. Claire tilted her head slightly. Different how? He thought for a moment. Then said, less automatic. She watched him. More intentional. Claire nodded slowly. That makes sense. He leaned forward again, resting his arms on the table. I don't want to just assume things are okay anymore, he said. Good. I want to ask more. Notice more. She held his gaze. Then do that. He nodded. I will. The words didn't come out as a promise. Just a decision. Claire saw the difference. She didn't comment on it. But something in her posture shifted again, slightly more open. Ryan noticed. Didn't point it out. He just stayed there, in it. I don't know where this goes, he said after a while. Claire nodded. Me neither. But I'm not ready to end it like this. She looked at him. I'm not either. The words stayed between them. Not loud, not final. Just true. And that was enough for now. Neither of them moved for a while. The kind of stillness that doesn't ask for anything. It just stays. Ryan leaned back in his chair, his hands resting loosely now, not gripping the edge of the table like before. Claire sat across from him. Her shoulders no longer held so tightly in place. The room hadn't changed. But it didn't feel the same. Ryan looked at her again. Not quickly. Not like checking something. Just looking. I don't think I've said this clearly, he said. Claire's eyes stayed on him. What? He hesitated. Not because he didn't know. Because he did. I still love you. The words didn't come out loud. But they didn't need to. They landed anyway. Claire didn't react right away. Her expression didn't shift into something obvious. No sudden change. No visible release. Just stillness. Then a small breath. I know, she said. Ryan nodded once. I don't think I've shown it in a way that matters, he added. Claire looked at him. You showed it in the ways you knew how. That wasn't enough. No, she said quietly. It wasn't. He let that sit. Didn't argue it. Didn't try to soften it. I don't want to keep loving you in a way you can't feel, he said. Claire's fingers moved slightly against the table, then stilled again. That matters, she said. Ryan held her gaze. Then I need to learn how to do it differently. Claire studied his face for a long moment. That takes time, she said. I know. And it might not work the way you expect. I know that too. She leaned back slightly. Then why try? Ryan didn't answer immediately. He looked down at the table, then at the papers turned over beside his hand, then back at her. Because I don't think what we had just disappeared, he said. Claire's eyes stayed steady. I think we stopped paying attention to it. She didn't respond right away. Then, quietly, I think so too. A pause. Ryan let out a slow breath. I don't expect things to go back, he said. They can't. I know. He leaned forward slightly, resting his arms on the table again. But I don't think starting over means pretending none of this happened. Claire nodded. It doesn't. It means we actually deal with it. Yes. Another pause. Ryan's fingers brushed lightly against the edge of the papers. He didn't turn them back over. He just felt them there. I think I need to ask more questions, he said. Claire's expression softened slightly. Probably. And I need to listen without trying to fix everything right away. She nodded again. That too. He gave a small, almost quiet exhale. That's going to be hard. I know. But it matters. Yes. The word stayed steady. Ryan leaned back again, letting his hands fall into his lap. For the first time, he didn't feel like he needed to hold on to something physically. The table. The papers. Anything. He just sat. I don't want to be someone you stopped choosing, he said. Claire's gaze dropped for a moment, then came back to him. I don't want that either. Ryan held that. But it has to be something we both choose, she added. He nodded. Yeah. A pause. Not heavy. Just real. Claire shifted in her chair slightly, her posture more relaxed now than it had been at the start. I think I need to say something too, she said. Ryan's attention focused again. Okay. She took a breath. I got used to you being there, she said. In a way that made me stop seeing you. Ryan didn't interrupt. I didn't notice how much you were doing, she continued, because it became expected. He looked at her. That's not your fault. It's not yours either. He nodded slowly. But it still changed things. Yes. She paused. I think I put you in the background of my life, she said. The words came out carefully. Not dramatic. Just clear. Ryan felt that one settle differently. He didn't look away this time. Yeah, he said quietly. Claire's voice softened. And I didn't realize how much that mattered until you were already gone in ways I didn't see. Ryan let out a slow breath. I was still there, he said. I know. But not in the way you needed. She nodded. Yes. Another pause. Ryan leaned forward again, his hands resting loosely on the table. I don't want to be in the background, he said. Claire met his gaze. Then don't be. He gave a small, almost tired smile. That's going to take both of us. I know. They held that for a moment, not as a problem, just as something real. Ryan glanced at the papers one last time, then looked back at her. I'm not signing those, he said. Claire didn't look at the papers. She looked at him. Okay. The word came without resistance, without relief either. Just acceptance. For now, he added. She nodded. For now. The phrase didn't promise anything. It didn't guarantee they would stay. It didn't pretend things were fixed. It just kept the door open. Ryan leaned back in his chair again. The tension in his shoulders had eased, but not disappeared. Claire sat across from him, her posture mirroring that same shift. Not guarded, not completely open, just somewhere in between. The room stayed dim. The silence returned, but it didn't press in anymore. It just existed. And this time, neither of them tried to fill it right away. Because for once, it didn't feel like something was missing. It felt like something had finally been seen,